know, it should say standing up, should I? I'm going to cause disruption here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Mila Mahagwa Varishach Tachtamach and Tronona Alling. So, it's a lovely evening. Agus is Dashiv Galir Deshkin. It's nice to see you all. Agus ta Orthon Tordaguing, Erisht Enocht. We have another great musician, James Kelly, all the way from Dublin, in the Pale, if you're familiar with the term. He traces his heritage back to County Clare. He's one of the great fiddle players of the modern era. He was here about 4 years ago, if you recall. Some of you may have been here. He was very kind to return again, had a great time then, and he's having a great time here once again. It's a great honour and privilege to be here to introduce him. It's a great honour and privilege as well to be able to recognise all the people who have made this possible. I talk about here in the School of Music, where we have the support of that school and faculty and our own College of Arts and our, what is it called now, Humanities and Sciences. There you go, I'm losing my mind. But most of all, I'd like to thank the Friends of Irish Studies. That's that non-profit organisation, community organisation, that has contributed so much to make all this possible. Without them, we would not be able to bring out the musicians we have brought out for the past month. There's going to be 4 in total. James is the 3rd. So I really would like to convey my heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the Friends of Irish Studies. If any of you are not members of the Friends of Irish Studies, I suggest you join them. They're a lot of fun. They're having their big banquet as well, their great Irish gathering next Saturday, the 14th, in the Doubletree. So go on their website and learn all about that. It's going to be a wonderful evening of music, song, dance, and conviviality. But we'll get back to that later. My main job here now is to introduce James, who was a wonderful fiddler, and here from Dublin, as I said. And I just want to ask you all to give him a rousing round of applause, and sit back and enjoy the music. Thank you so much. Good evening, Mila Mahagwa.
Okay, good evening, and thanks very much for coming out this evening. I'm delighted to be here. I was here, I think, 3 years ago, 2011, and had a wonderful visit to Montana, to Missoula, and of course to Butte. And we were in Butte last night, and here I am in Missoula this evening. So I would like to combine some talk and some stories associated with the music I'd like to play for you this evening, and obviously play some tunes for you as well. Maybe along the way, if somebody has a question or two, I'm glad to answer a question. If you have something you'd like to ask, I'll do my best. I may not have an answer, but I'll definitely listen to your question. And so I was thinking I'd start off tonight by saying to you that sometimes you go to concerts, maybe you go to concerts a lot, and you look at the person on stage, and you might say to yourself, well, how did that person get there? You know, what was their story? And usually you don't have a chance to talk to the person on stage because it's not that kind of a situation. But in my case, I'd like to use myself as a kind of a theme for the evening and talk to you a little bit about my family and my background, and then all the tributaries through my family hopefully will give you a kind of an overview of this music in the last, let's say, 80 years or so. And further back, I'd like to go back and play some music from the 1700s for you as well, and so on and so on. So I'm going to start off by playing you just a little piece of a jig that I learned when I was growing up. I was born in Dublin, as Trellick was saying, and I was the youngest of 5 children. Everybody in my household played music, and so we had 6 fiddle players and 1 accordion player in the house. And of course, I was the youngest, so everybody else was older than me, which meant they could all play better than me. And I was fanatic for the music and practicing and so on. And I always tried to do my best and practice and do all that stuff. So the first tune that my father taught all the members of the family, that's okay. That was very good, by the way. Was this little jig. So I'm going to start off by playing this simple jig. Actually, maybe I'll play in the dark for you tonight. How does that sound? Yeah, no name, just a simple jig. So here we go. Well, thanks very much. So that was the first jig I learned. I was 3 years of age, and I had my first fiddle. My father used to, of course I couldn't really play at that point in time, but my father used to sit me on his knee and bounce me up and down and sing the music to me. And when I did have the fiddle in my hand and the bow, he'd go through the motions with me. And it was planting a seed, of course, is what it was. My father was from West County Clare originally. He was born almost out to where the peninsula is in County Clare, and it was a very, very rural part of Clare, very rural part of Ireland, farming community. He was born in 1911, and there was a lot of musicians in his locality as well, but he eventually moved to, I'm going to weave my way around this story, but I'll tell you more detail later. He eventually ended up in Kildare, County Kildare in 1944, and moved to Dublin in 45 and bought a shop in Dublin and raised his family there. So as we were moving along in my home, you learn standard repertoire of tunes that everybody played. And it was, at that stage, it was mostly families that would get together. You'd go to somebody else's house and you'd learn music or play music together or whatever it might be. So I would like next to play you two reels that I learned, also very, very young, maybe 5, 6, 7. The first one is a reel called Farewell to Connacht. Now, Ireland is divided up into 4 provinces, and Connacht is the province in the west of Ireland. And it is a very, very old tune. The composer would be unknown. It's very, very like, do we have any old-timey American musicians in the audience? No? Well, there's a reel that they play in the American tradition called Billy in the Lowground, and this tune is in essence the same piece of music. So whether it came from Ireland originally or what, I'm not sure, but it's very, very like that particular tune. And the second tune is a reel called The First House in Connacht. By the way, I'm going to ask you questions on the way out tonight, and you have to answer all these questions. But hope you're taking notes. So I remember I was playing one night and somebody was overheard saying to somebody else, he's up there, he's reading all those tunes off the sheet music. So my notes. Reminded of a story, Paddy Keenan, the piper. I don't know if Paddy's been out to Missoula, but Paddy was playing one night in Philadelphia and he was playing with Zan McLeod, guitar and bouzouki. And after a while, the lights were low in the place they were playing. And after a while, Zan noticed that the set list that Paddy was working from was upside down. And he whispered to Paddy and he said to him, "You do realise that the set list is upside down?" And Paddy looked back at him and he said, "Sure, anybody can read it the other way." So I'm going to switch away. So I'll tell you more about my father in detail as I move along a little bit later on. So in the meantime, I'd like to talk about a man called Sean O'Riada. Sean O'Riada was born John Reedy in 1941, and he was born in Cork. He got his leaving certificate, his high school diploma in Limerick, and he ended up back in Cork, and he studied under a professor, Fleischmann, in Cork. In 1955, he became the director of Radio Éireann, the national radio station in Ireland. And in 1956, he went to France, Paris for some time. Came back to Dublin in 56 and became the music director at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. And he was music director from 56 to 1962. Now, in the late 1950s, there was a play called Misha Era, and Sean O'Riada, John Reedy became Sean O'Riada, and he was commissioned to do the music score for the play. Misha Era was looked at politics in Ireland between the late 1800s and the early 1900s. And after that, there was a playwright, a novelist from County Kerry, a man called Brian McMahon, who there was a play it was coming up shortly called The Song of the Anvil, and Sean O'Riada was commissioned to organise the music for the play, which meant he had to come in contact with musicians, and this time it was traditional musicians. So he hadn't really been in contact with traditional music so much before that, although he did, but not to the same extent. And so the musicians got together. He got them. There was different players. There was Paddy Maloney from Dublin on the pipes. My father was played fiddle with the group, and Sonny Brogan. Sonny Brogan was an accordion player from Dublin. Lived up by Croke Park. If you know anything about Irish football and hurling, the All Ireland final is in Croke Park in Dublin every year. And Martin Fay. Martin Fay was a classically trained violin player from Dublin who played at the Abbey Theatre. And Michael Turbert, he was a flute player from County Clare who lived in Dublin. And so they formed this ensemble. Also Sean Potts played the whistle. They formed this ensemble and they called it Ceoltóirí Cúlan. And so it was Sean O'Riada and Ceoltóirí Cúlan. And it was really the first time, I suppose, in the history of traditional music that they presented traditional music and song to the general audience. Now, traditional music and song had been done before that on some of the old 78s, but in fact it was classical players doing orchestrations of Irish dance tunes, but this was the first time that was actually traditional musicians doing the same thing. And they launched themselves in 1960 at the, I think it was the Theatre Festival, the Dublin Theatre Festival, if I'm not mistaken about that. It was called Rackarucht an Riedig, O'Riada's Recital, and that was the first public performance of Ceoltóirí Cúlan and with Sean O'Riada directing the group. So before I move along, I would like to play you a piece of music. So I was at home in Ireland last year, and I was in my brother John's house. My brother John is a fiddle player as well. And so I was looking on the table, and he had this manuscript. And I looked at the manuscript, and there was a piece of music, I never saw this piece of music in my life, but it said composed by John Reedy. So I said to my brother John, I said, you do realise that that's Shauna Reid's composition there? It was the actual original. And John said, well, I'm not sure, I didn't really realise that. So we called Padder Reid up, Shauna Reid's son, on the phone, and of course played him the composition over the telephone. So just for a bit of fun, I thought I'd play you this tonight. So this would be an unknown composition of Shauna Reid. And I have a photocopy of the piece I'm going to leave there, and maybe during the break you're welcome to have a look. It's just the music written out. I don't know what it's called, but I'll just play you this piece. I call it John Reedy's Waltz. So they formed this group called the Coolin, and Coolin is a place name where Shauna Reid's family lived, just south of Dublin. It's on the way to Wicklow, from the geography. Ireland north and south, there's Dublin in the east, and then Wicklow is the county directly underneath. And so when I was growing up myself, the area was called Galloping Green. And I used to go out to Galloping Green with my father. He'd go out to rehearsals. And then a number of years later, in the mid-60s, Shauna Reid and his family moved down to Coolay in West Cork, the Gaeltacht area in West Cork. Gaeltacht is an area where they speak Irish and they preserve the language. And so I used to go to the rehearsals with my father. The rehearsals after that were over the GPO in Dublin, the General Post Office. And so some of you would be familiar with the music of O'Carolan. Yes? And so Ceoltóirí Cúlan, it was Ceoltóirí Cúlan who presented the music of O'Carolan first to the public in the early 60s. And Donal O'Sullivan did a collection, the complete works of Turlough O'Carolan. So Sean O'Reilly started to take an interest in the compositions of O'Carolan. Now, just to tell you a little bit about Turlough O'Carolan, he was born in 1670 and he died in 1738. He was a blind musician. He was born in County Meath and he eventually ended up in County Roscommon. The family moved from Meath to Roscommon. They were born in Nobber. He was born in Nobber in County Meath, but they moved to the family, the McDermott Rowe family in Roscommon, and his father got employment, and the McDermott Rowe family, seeing that O'Carolan was blind, got him lessons, music lessons, and got him a guide, and when he got better on the harp, helped him to, to make a living. So O'Carolan travelled around Ireland at that time and composed tunes in honour of his patron. So I would like to play you 3 compositions of O'Carolan's next. Now, do you want real obscure stuff or do you want tunes that you already know, maybe?
Obscure.
Obscure? Obscure, well known. Right. Well, I'm going to play a piece called Mabel Kelly. And Mabel Kelly was a friend and acquaintance of O'Carolan. Not played very much. I may have heard it in public a couple of times. In those rehearsals that I used to go to when I was very, very young, I'd see Sean O'Reilly at the piano. He'd come up to Dublin every so often, and he used to smoke cigarellas. Do you know what cigarellas are?
Yeah.
And he'd put them on the ends of the keys. And of course, I'd always be fascinated by them because the ashes, they'd be burning closer to the keys. And I would try and get my father's attention, and I'd say, and Sean O'Reilly was sitting beside me, so he'd cop that I was looking at him, and all he did was he'd pick it up from that key and move it over to the next one. So it already had burned that one, and then it burned the next one, and that's what was going on all the time. But he used to wear a black velvet jacket. It was a beautiful black velvet jacket. And when they were rehearsing Fanny Power and She Bug, She More, and some of the most famous O'Carolan compositions, and I was in the room with them when they were practicing these pieces. Years later, when Sean O'Reilly died when he was 40 years of age. He was a very, very young man. And I got that jacket. And so when I put it on, I felt like I was Elvis Presley, Let me see what age I would have been. I would have been 67. I was 14 at the time. And I was rubbing the jacket and I was touching it, and I thought I was a film star going around with this jacket on. And the O'Reilly family in West Cork, they used to have Irish wolfhounds. And so one of the dogs that they had at that time was called Fionn. And Fionn, of course, was a big dog, and I loved to play with this dog, and he loved to play with me. And he was able to jump up on top of me and knock me back in the grass, and he'd lick me, and he'd grab my leg and pretend to bite my leg, and I was in ecstasy. But anyway, one day during my visits to West Cork, and I used to go there a lot, so every summer I'd be down for at least 6 weeks more, and we were like family, the O'Reillys and the Kellys, we were like brothers and sisters and so on. So I was brushing my teeth one day, and I was looking out the window, and I could see the end of the dog in the garden, of course, playing with something, and I couldn't see what he was playing with. And I went downstairs eventually, and I went out to play with him, as I usually did, and lo and behold, there was a kind of a hole in the ground, and guess what was in the hole in the ground? My beautiful Sean O'Reilly jacket. And it was wrecked. All the slobber was on it, and it was all torn, and it was a disaster. I couldn't salvage the jacket at all, Anyway, I wish I had it today, but that was that story. So I'll play Mabel Kelly for you, then I'll play, I'm going to play a slow air that O'Carolan wrote in memory of a friend of his who was a barrister practicing law in Sligo, a man called Terence MacDonagh. Terence MacDonagh actually was a councillor and he was a poet. He fought for King James. He was at the siege of Derry. He got arrested and caught in Derry, and they let him go. And he was the only Catholic practicing law in Ireland at the time. And so anyway, he died in 1713, and O'Carolan wrote this air. And then I'll play you a tune called Planxty O'Connor. And there's been a lot of talk about the word Planxty and where Planxty comes from. And as best as I can make out, it would mean a festive time or a gathering in the house of. So Planxty Drury, Planxty Burke, Planxty O'Connor, and so on. Sean O'Reilly had a theory that it came from the word sláinte. And some people agreed with that and some people disagreed with that. But I think the other understanding makes more sense, because that's what he did. He went to the homes of these well-off people and he composed music in honour of these people who were his patrons. So the last tune is called Planxty O'Connor. So the first one is Mabel Kelly. I'm not talking too much, I hope, am I? You're lucky you said that. Meant for Terence MacDonagh. Thanks to you, Connor. Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, I'll play a couple of reels next for you, and just to switch away from O'Carolan for a second. His music was very European in flavour. It wasn't necessarily traditional in that way. Some of his compositions were more traditional than others, and he would have heard some of the Baroque music from Europe at the time, and so consequently his music has a more European flavour, a more formal feel, I suppose, in some ways. But it's lovely to play them at the same time. They're lovely pieces of music. I'm going to play 4 reels for you next. There's a fiddle player up in Donegal called Danny Meehan, and Danny Meehan is in his 70s, and he's a glorious musician, and he's a wonderful fiddle player and a very inventive person, and comes out with some wonderful ideas in his music, which is a reflection of who he is himself. He's a great man, great company to be with. And I just call it Danny Meehan's reel. The second reel is a reel called The Yellow Cow. Do you have any yellow cows in Missoula? No? You haven't seen any late at night on the way home, no? Well, anyway, it's a song. This is a song that Michael Russell used to sing, and anyway, I like to play it as a reel. Ballymahan is the next piece of music, the Ballymahan reel. Longford, Ballymahan in County Longford. And then Toss the Feathers is the last tune, Scapa na Gletti, Tossing the Feathers, Toss the Feathers. It's a very, very old reel. So, here we go. The atmosphere, I notice, affects the instrument a lot. And I was telling the audience last night, I'm electric since I came to Montana. And I took my jumper off earlier on tonight, and my hair, and I had to put my hair against the metal to kind of take the charge out of my head. I went, shh. That's what's going on. So I'm playing electric music for you tonight. Okay, two more selections. Thanks very much. I'm going to, of course, I could play a lot more selections for you. I'll play a couple more and then we'll take a break. So I mentioned the music of O'Carolan, and so if you move along after the time that O'Carolan died, 1738, and we move to the late 1700s, a group of musicians got together in Belfast and they decided to organise an event that they called the Belfast Harpers Festival in 1792. And they commissioned a man called Edward Bunting to go to the occasion and document the music that all the harpers played. And Edward Bunting was this young 19-year-old classical musician. He played the organ, and he didn't really have any experience with traditional music, but he went along anyway. And he heard 11 harpers in total. One of them was a Welshman, and there was 10 Irish people. One of them was a man from McGilligan in the north of Ireland called Dennis Hempson. And Dennis Hempson was born in the late 1600s, lived through the 1700s, and died, I think, 1807. I think he was 112 years of age. And so he was the oldest person at the Belfast Harpers Festival, and he played the old traditional style of harp music that the other players didn't, in fact. He played with long nails, and they didn't play with nails. And the music that they played, of course, was compositions of O'Carolan. And Dennis Hempson didn't really like O'Carolan's music because he reckoned it was too modern. It wasn't the old music, you know. But there was a 15-year-old, I'm just looking for my notes here, I can't remember all these details for you, I'll just see if I have it here. William Kerr of Armagh was 15 years of age. All the other harpers were over 45. And let me see who is from Wales, if I have it here to tell you. Sorry, I don't know who the Welsh harper was. Charles Fanning from Cavan got first place. And the top 3 people in the competition got an annual stipend of £10, which was an absolute fortune. Could you imagine £10 in 1792? I don't know where they got all the money from, but it was a fortune. And so Edward Bunting went there and he wrote down the music, and then he did journeys out into the country after the festival itself, and he interviewed the musicians themselves. So he went to Dennis Hempson, and Dennis Hempson was able to talk to him about all the technicalities, the old techniques that the harpers used in past times. So it's all documented. Now, how the music actually sounded is another thing, because you have to hear it. It's one thing to see it written down, but you have to hear the sound of the music. But another thing that he did that was controversial was he changed the keys that they played the music in. And that was a kind of a negative thing against Edward Bunting. But one of the pieces of music that he collected and that was played was, I'd like to play a little bit of this piece of music on Coolin, the fair-haired one. And it might be the most well-known of all the Irish airs. I'd like to play a bit of that for you right now. It was collected by Edward Bunting. And then after that, I'm going to play you 3 jigs. I'll tell you about them in a minute, but I'll just play the Coolin on its own first of all. It's a very, very nice piece of music. And I may play it as a march, come to think of it as well. I'll have to decide what I want to do. Thanks very much. Well, to be honest with you, the March version of the tune comes from a man called John Doherty in Donegal, this wonderful musician from Donegal. So I'm going to play some of his selections a bit in the second half. But rather than play you jigs, I think I'll just play one more selection and we'll take a break then. And I'd like to tell you that I do have some CDs with me tonight, and I also compose tunes every now and again. I'm following in the footsteps of O'Carolan, so I have a book with some compositions and so on out there in the hall if you'd like to have a look. So I presume you want something lively. Does that make sense? So I'll play, I don't know what I'm going to play. I mean, I'll play you a couple of reels. I'll play you a tune called The Navvy on the Shore. It's a lovely reel. And I'm going to play you a composition after that. I call it Andaley's Reel. There's a musician in Miami called Paul Groff, and his son's name is Andy. They're little children. And his daughter's name is Emily. So I turned Emily and Andy into Andaley's Reel for his two children. And then the last tune is a reel called Jackie Rowe, and I got that from the playing of the legendary Sean Maguire. And after that, then I'll take a break. So thanks very much.
you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a 10-minute break. And I also want to remind you, this is kind of kicking off our St. Patrick's Day celebration, so don't forget on Tuesday night in St. Anthony's Community Life Centre, there's going to be a lecture talking St. Patrick. On Thursday in the Roxy, we have a film night, and the first of those is Song of the Sea. It's an animated, an Academy Award winning animated film based on Irish mythology, and it's a great one for the kids. And I think it's $6 admission and $10 for families. And after that, we'll have a film, a documentary made both in Ireland and here in Montana about an Irish immigrant family that came to mine here. Beautifully, beautifully done, and you shouldn't miss them. And then we have on Saturday, there's Mass at 8 o'clock in St. Francis. The parade leaves at noon. At 2:30, we got a hurling match in Washington Grizzly Stadium. So those of you who are feeling a chill, I suggest you go up there and watch that. It'll send the blood coursing through your veins. And then that evening is the great gathering of the Irish, the St. Patrick's banquet and auction in support of the Friends of Irish Studies, who do so much to promote Irish culture and the Irish Studies programs here. You've got to get to that. It's the biggest gathering of Irishmen and women in the whole town for the year. And next week, there is a dinner on St. Patrick's Day over in St. Anthony's, and there'll be great music, song and dance there as well. Then next, on Saturday, the 21st of March, we have Liam Wendy playing here again. And then on the 22nd of March, in the St. Anthony's Parish Life Centre, we have the drawing for the trip to Ireland. So if you haven't gotten your ticket for that, or you want to get a ticket for family, friends, as a St. Patrick's Day gift, they're on sale outside as well. Thank you all very, very much. And all information, by the way, about this is available on friendsofirishstudies.com. Get on that website. It's chock-block full of information. I'm running out of breath. Thank you so much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start the second half of the show, and we're going to have a special treat. As you
probably know, this whole course was started about 2009, and it was designed by Patrick Williams, who's here somewhere in the audience, I think, tonight. At least he was, anyway. Oh, actually, he's down there in the corner. And he came up with the idea of bringing out the Irish musicians, and it has been such a great success. Nobody's listening to me. I think I'll talk to the wall. Where's the wall? Yeah, so he did bring that out, these musicians. You see, that's what I always tell people. The reason I talk to myself is the only way I can guarantee I'll get a hearing. But anyway, I was saying, well, Patrick Williams designed this course, and he designed it with the objective of bringing Irish musicians and the Irish tradition back in here to Montana, where it would interact with the tradition that had survived from the Irish immigrant community, and did a foundation for an Irish program, or an Irish music program. And it's been tremendously successful. Patrick isn't teaching the course this year. We have Ailish Keegan, who's the champion Irish fiddler, and in the second half, Ailish is going to come out and join James and play a few tunes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause to James Kelly, and hang on to our seats because Ailish will be joining him a little bit later on in the programme. Good Mila Mahagwith.
Are you well rested? Thanks very much. So I started off tonight by mentioning my father, and my father I mentioned was from West County Clare. He was a fiddle player and a concertina player, and those two tunes I learned from him. The first one was called The Humours of Kilcluher. So the area that he came from was called Kilballion. If you could just imagine the townland, and the county goes out to a point out where the peninsula is, and his townland was Kilballion, and then if you go further west, Kilcluher, and then if you go further west, it's Kilbaha, where the lighthouse is, and then it's literally a drop off into the ocean at that stage. About 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles from my father's house to the lighthouse. You could see the Shannon on one side, and if you went a little bit further west, you could see the Atlantic Ocean on the other side. So it was very remote, and he was interested in music from a very, very early age, but he didn't have an instrument. All he had was the sounds of the music going around in his head, and his uncle Thomas Keane was a concertina player from that area, and he used to listen to his uncle playing. And my grandmother was Elizabeth Kelly. She played the concertina as well. So he called the second jig there that I played for you Elizabeth Kelly's, because he learned it from his mother, my grandmother. And he eventually got some sticks. He used to pretend that 2 sticks were a fiddle and a bow. And then after that, he went up to the schoolmaster and he asked the schoolmaster if he could borrow his fiddle. And he was very brave, if you could imagine, being 9 or 10 in the classroom and standing up in front of everybody and asking for a fiddle. You know what I mean? They all thought he lost his mind. And then that was one problem that was bad enough. But the next problem was, how does he smuggle the fiddle back home? Because nobody knew that he wanted to play the fiddle. And so he hid the fiddle out in the hay barn, and he'd sneak out to the hay barn the afternoon after school, and he'd do the best he could with the instrument, and out again another time, and out again another time, and out again another time, till eventually he was telling me that one day he was playing in the hay barn, and of course he turned around and the whole family, everybody was standing there with their jaws dropped. They couldn't believe what was going on. So he was exposed at that stage. And eventually he went to the instruments. Well, fiddles, I suppose, cost a little bit more. Concertinas you could get really cheap, 2 and 6pence at the time. Now that was a lot of money, but in reality it wasn't that much money, but I didn't have hardly anything. So you'd have old cheap concertinas, German-made concertinas, and you know, you'd play them for a while, the bellows would go, and then you'd throw it away and get another one, and on and on and on. But the blacksmith made my father's fiddle, and the blacksmith, of course, had no experience making fiddles. And when he put the varnish on the fiddle to let it dry, of course, he put it down on newspaper, and the newspaper dried to the back of the fiddle. So anyway, it went on from there. So I'll just move the story forward a little bit. So that my father was born in 1911, 1932, and my father was playing a lot, and you know, he established himself as a musician in the locality he came from, and he was in Kilkee. He was on the Strand in Kilkee, and there was a big gathering of people this afternoon. It was a sunny day, and there was a man playing the uilleann pipes by the Strand. He was standing up with his foot on a box, playing the pipes, standing up, which would be unusual, because usually the pipers would play sitting down on a chair or wall or something. But this man's name was Johnny Dorn, and he was playing standing with his foot on a box, and a big crowd of people around, and people were mesmerised by his music because he was a wonderful player. And my father was mesmerised too, but he didn't get a chance to talk to him at that stage. In amongst the crowd, my father spotted another person in amongst the group. He didn't know who he was either, but he remembered his face. And if I move the story forward again to 1940, late 1940s, at that stage my father had moved from West Clare up to Dublin. And he was living in Dublin at the time, had a shop in the middle of the city, and you know, I suppose he was living there maybe 3 or 4 years at the time. But along the way, who used to come to Dublin and would come down to the shop and visit my father was Johnny Dorn, who was the man that was playing on the Strand in 1932. And they became very, very good friends. And Johnny Dorn was a piper. He was originally from Wicklow, and my mother was from Wicklow. And my mother used to make brown bread, and Johnny Dorn loved her brown bread and the tea, nice strong tea. My mother made really strong tea. So Johnny Dorn would be with my mother having tea and brown bread, and my father would be looking after the shop. But one evening during that time, Johnny Dorn came into the shop, and he said to my father, he said, I have a pain in my chest. I don't feel well. And I don't really know why my father did this, but he didn't call the doctor for some reason. Maybe Johnny Dorn said it wasn't so bad. My father called Kevin Danaher from the Folklore Commission and arranged a recording session for Johnny Dorn at that time. So I'm not sure what the logic was. The doctor, recording session, okay. And so my father went with Johnny Dorn several occasions to this studio in Dublin in 1948, I think it was, and Johnny Dorn recorded 11 tracks of music at the time. They're the only recordings in existence of this man. In the world of piping, of course, he would be considered one of the great pipers of the 20th century, which he was. And one of the selections that he recorded actually was a duet with my father. So I'll play these two tunes for you, the Fair My Lassies and This Reel. But anyway, Johnny Dorn, his style was what they call an open style of playing flowing kind of legato style music. And I would like to dedicate this selection to Erin. I know that she's leaving, but Erin, I know you have your hands full, and Shayna and Sean and Oisin. I want to dedicate this, and of course Tréalach O'Riordan himself. But I want to dedicate this to the O'Riordans, who have been so hospitable and nice and helpful to me since I came to Montana. So I want to dedicate this to you. So you can move along, Erin. I know you're busy, but this is for you anyway. Thank you very much. So, and next, I'd like to play you a slow air next, and I do love to play airs, I have to say. Cá Céimeanna, the Battle of Céimeanna, and it was written by a woman called Mara O'Leary, Mara Bani Leary. It commemorates a battle, a skirmish between the yeomanry, the loyalists at the time, and a group called the White Boys. And I have a little bit of information here. Let me see what the year was. It was in Guggenbarra in 1822. And anyway, this song air came out of that particular skirmish, and I'd like to play that for you right now. Not played very much, you only hear this on a rare occasion, but it's a lovely air. Cá Céimeanna. Thank you very much. Well, it gives me great pleasure to call out on the stage Eilish Keegan, and she's here at the university for I think about a year teaching a course, I hope I get this right, Irish Music and Song, and she's a lovely person. I only met her a few days ago for the first time. I only heard her playing the fiddle just a few minutes ago. She's a beautiful player and she's great company, and she's been wonderful since I arrived here in Missoula. So can we give a warm welcome, please, to Ailey Stevens?
Well, I'd just like to say it's a pleasure here to be here again tonight with the great James Kelly. I've had a brilliant opportunity here to teach a music course in the university, so Music and Song of Ireland, and I'd like to thank the Friends of Irish Studies for giving me that opportunity. It's been great, and then this series of concerts as a part of it just brings the whole thing to life. So I'm working with a great bunch of students. I know they're here tonight, scattered around. So that's been a privilege as well, and it's just great to keep the Irish culture alive in Montana. So we're going to try a few jigs anyway. The first one is a composition of Junior Creehans called The Mist-Covered Mountain, and again my students have been learning this during the week on the whistle, or giving it a go anyway, so you can hear what it sounds like on the fiddle now. And the second one is called the Kesh Jig, so we'll give them a go.
Lovely.
Well, I just thought it's funny to note that I'd come all the way to Montana to meet James for the first time, even though we come from neighbouring counties back at home. And that rivalry between Dublin and Meath is, it's a good rivalry anyway. But when I was about 10 years old, I went to Miltown Malbay to the Willie Clancy Summer School. I don't know I'd say a few of you might have heard of it, but my teacher there was James's brother, Jan, and back in the 90s anyway, they were good years for Meath football, and I used to go in there every day wearing my Meath jersey, so there used to be the slagging going on there, so I don't know if you're much of a football man anymore, James, but anyway, we're going to play 2 hornpipes. The first one is on Stachy Nornia, or the Stack of Wheat, and the second one, I don't think we have a name for it, no name. This is one as well, in the Irish club there last week, there's a lovely 2-hand dance that goes to the first one, so if any of you feel like getting up here and doing a bit of a dance, you're welcome to. I'll leave you be if you don't want to. Okay.
Otis Keegan, ladies and gentlemen. So, you know yourself when you're traveling around and that, it's lovely to meet players and you get a chance to play together, and that's what, you know, this community does, you know, when you get together with musicians and that, you have a chance to share music and play with people and that, it's always a lovely thing to do. So thanks very much. I'm going to switch gears again a little bit, and I'm going up to Donegal for a little visit. And Donegal is a county in the northwestern part of Ireland, and of course over the years there have been many wonderful and fantastic musicians from that county. The interesting thing about Donegal was that, let's say 150 years ago or more, many of the people that lived there ended up in Scotland. They were looking for work and they ended up over in Scotland working in farms and picking potatoes and so on. And what they did was, some of them was they brought back the music from Scotland, and they brought back the styles of tunes, you know, Scottishes and Highlands and so on, and the reels, of course. And that has become part of the Donegal repertoire, if you listen to the styles up in Donegal. And also there's a whole repertoire of very kind of unusual and odd, kind of intricate tunes that you wouldn't hear very much unless you go to the source material. And I'm going to play you a couple of tunes that I learned from a legendary fiddler from Donegal called John Doherty. And John Doherty was a travelling musician and a tinsmith, and he was an absolutely fantastic musician. If anybody goes on YouTube and you put in John Doherty or John Doherty fiddle, you'll see a documentary that was done on his life in 1963, among other things, and you'll see his fantastic technical ability and his facilities up and down the neck of the fiddle and all the complicated pieces of music he could play, you know, compositions of James Scott Skinner, the mathematician, and all these very difficult tunes. He could play them all like he was nothing, like it was nothing, effortless. And so I'm going to play 4 tunes for you. I don't have names. I have a name on the last one. Actually, excuse me, the second one is called the Glen Conwell Hornpipe. I don't know what the other tunes are. I don't know how to describe these tunes to you, but anyway, you can have a listen to them and see what you think. They're just, I don't know how to describe those tunes. They're like tightrope walking tunes there, you know. They're very difficult to play, but, you know, it's kind of a challenge, you know, yourself, you're up for the challenge, so. So I'm going to play, I don't know if I'll play maybe some polkas. I haven't really played any polkas yet, so I'll play a selection of polkas, and then I'm going to invite Ailish out again to play a selection of reels with me to finish off the night. So my father introduced my family to music from all over the country, and he met John Doherty, that man right there, in 1950 for the first time in Cavan. And so we had, aside from all the people that came to our home when we were growing up, we also had a wonderful collection of 78 records and reel-to-reel tapes and so on. So the house was exploding with music. And I just remembered I wanted to tell you a little bit about the end of the story about the piper Johnny Doran that time. And I told you that my father arranged a recording session for him. Sadly, shortly after that, he was in Dublin, because he'd come into Dublin with the family and go back out of Dublin and come back to Dublin another time. He was standing, the caravan that they were in was parked on High Street in Dublin, and he got out of the caravan one day and he had his shoes, he was tying his shoelaces on the steps at the back of the caravan, and sadly the wall behind him that he was standing by collapsed on top of him. And so he was brought off the hospital. He was paralysed. He was really paralysed, I suppose. Most of his body was paralysed. And my father used to go and visit him in the hospital with one of the other people I've mentioned was the man in 1932 that was also on that strand, the person that my father didn't know at that time, but got to know him in the 40s and so on, a famous musician called Willie Clancy. So my father went up to the hospital with Willie Clancy and another famous musician called Andy Conroy into the hospital where Johnny Doran was, and Willie Clancy worked the bellows on one side of the bed and Andy Conroy controlled the bag on the other side, and Johnny Doran had enough feeling in his fingers to play the chanter in the bed, and sadly then he died, I think within 8 weeks or 10 weeks after that. So that was a sad ending to Johnny Doran. He was only a very, very young man at the time. But anyway, you know, we had all these musicians coming, and we had the County Kerry musicians coming as well. So my father could look in the higher point of the area that he came from. You could look across and you could see County Kerry just across the Shannon. And my father was in love with County Kerry, so anytime the Kerry musicians came to Dublin, my father was in ecstasy, you know, aside from the Claremen. And so I'm going to play you 3 polkas. The first one is called the Scarta Glen polka. And the second one is called Padraig O'Keefe's, and the last one is called O'Callaghan's. And this style of tune has a pulse, an underlying pulse. It's a technique that you use with the bow. Oh, sorry, not tune. It was in tune when I got this fiddle. Sorry. Am I in tune? Hope I am. Okay, 3 polkas. Thanks very much. Thank you. So anyway, I want to, just before we finish, I want to say a special thanks to Trela Career Dawn and the Irish Studies Programme here at the university for inviting me out to Missoula again. I've had a wonderful couple of days and couldn't be amongst better people. And yourselves as well, the lovely audiences that I've met and been able to play for in Montana. It's really a treat, and it's a wonderful, great memories. Thank you very, very much. And I would like to invite Eilish out again. We're going to play 3 reels that were recorded by the legendary Michael Coleman of Sligo. And Michael Coleman, like many of the musicians, you know, times were tough in Ireland at the time, and they found themselves having to leave. And in Michael Coleman's case, he left and he never returned back to Ireland again. He was born in 1891, and he came to America in 1917 and lived in New York City till 1945. And he was actually, well, first of all, he was a fantastic musician, but aside from that, he was in the right place at the right time because the technology had moved on from the old cylinder recordings, and he was able to make 78s at the time, which of course were much more commercial, they were commercially viable and so on. And so all the recordings that he made and all the other musicians made in New York at the time played a really important and vital role in helping to keep Irish music alive back in Ireland. So all those records that came back to Ireland at the time helped to keep it alive when it seemed to be dying out. So Eilish and myself are going to play these 3 wonderful reels for you called The Tar Bolton and The Longford Collector and The Sailor's Bonnet. So thanks very much, everybody, and thanks to Eilish as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks very much. I tried to get Eilish to come out again. She won't come out, so I said I'll start one off and you can join me, you know. So what are you informed for then? What are you informed to listen to? Do you have a request? Excuse me? Sorry? The Lads of Laois, okay. The Lads of Laois, okay. Thanks very much. I haven't played that tune for years before then, many years. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you.